It is my pleasure to introduce Chase Dooley. Chase is one of our newest members here at St. Andrews. I think lots of you know Chase. And he mentioned early on that he was into robotics. I don't know about you, I've heard about it. I read Isaac Asimov's stuff, but I wanted to see the real thing. And Chase volunteered to come, well, I twisted his arm just a little bit to come show this. And Chase, will you introduce your partner in crime over here?
We will. Hi, I'm Chase. Many of you know me. This here is Kylie. Hello. That's Kylie. Yay! Today we're going to be talking a little about First Robotics, which is the robotics program that we're a part of that helps us create robots like this, and like this, and a couple other levels as well that we'll talk about in the presentation. Okay, so who are we? We've each got on different shirts for the two different teams. So we are part of the Robototes and the Technototes out of Sammamish High School. These are both two different levels of robotics programs under First Robotics. So there's the larger robot here. This is the Robototes. That's the sweatshirt I've got on here. And then there's the Technototes, which create smaller robots like this to compete at a different level. Both a lot of fun. Actually, next week, our team is going to be traveling over to Cheney in Eastern Washington for the district championship. And over the past 4 years, we've qualified for the world's level of robotics at this robot level right here. And in 2019 as well with the FTC robot, and we're hoping to keep up that streak. Congratulations. Today we're going to be showing, not motorized, but we're going to be showing off the different parts of our robot, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we do and what students do on robotics, because these robots are entirely student-built and student-led, so this all comes from the minds of a bunch of high schoolers all shoved in one room together over like 6 weeks. Something comes out of it eventually. And then we'll be talking a little bit about what these competitions look like, because they do go to events. And then we'll have a short Q&A session, and towards the end you can also come up and look at the robots a little bit closer. So what is FIRST? FIRST is the overall program that all of this is under. You need to be organized somehow. FIRST stands for the Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. It was a program founded in the 90s in order to bring 21st century STEM skills to students at all levels K through 12. There's different programs for both elementary, middle, and high school levels, and within those there's smaller denominations as well, where different students can be met at the level they're at, whether it's working with the FTC robots here, fit in an 18 by 18 inch cube, whether we're working at a robot that eventually extends to be taller than myself, or if we're working at a Mindstorms and Lego level for the younger students. First, we'll be talking about FRC. So FRC is this robot level right here. This is for high school students only, so you have 6 weeks to design and build industrial competition level robots. So at the beginning of January, you learn about the game of that year. So all of these robots aim to participate in certain challenges and certain games to both compete with and against other high school teams from around the area. And so at the beginning of January, you learn what your competition is, and then you have from then to 6 weeks to design and build your entire robot. So this robot here has already gone through 2 full competitions, and we'll be going to one next week as well. It's a lot. So these robots weigh about 100 to 120 pounds on average, and this is the biggest level, so physically the largest level of robotics that there is under the program. It's also the most expensive, which is why I love our business team, because this entire team is funded by our students as well. So these students organize different fundraisers, they reach out to companies for sponsorships, they talk with our parent booster clubs in order to get funds to build and pay for this entire robot, because the materials aren't cheap. But it is a lot of fun, and you learn a lot when working through the program. Now, along with FRC, there's also FTC. FTC is this level of robot right here. This is for middle and high school students. This can be either tied to a school or to a community, depending on the interest in the area. These robots can be 18 by 18 inches, and they're usually only 30 to 50 pounds on average, so this can easily pick up on my own. That one takes 2 people in a robot cart. It's a little bit heavier, but this one here has a different challenge to complete. So these are both from this year's season. They were built at different times as well. So this robot, we learned the challenge for in September, and then we had until November or so to design and build that robot. So that way our seasons don't overlap. We both participate in both of these programs. We both had hands-on approaches to being able to learn how to build both this robot here and the bigger one. Yeah.
What does that robot do?
This robot is built for a specific game where it picks up all these little rectangles, and it has to grab them with its claw here and deposit it up in either 2 different levels of bins, or it hooks it and hangs it on different levels of pipes. We'll also have a little bit more time to describe the different parts of the robots towards the end once we've gone over every level, because there's a lot going on within both of them. Yes?
Did you take apart last year's robot?
Yeah. A couple of them. We actually have some fully intact robots from previous seasons that we use for certain outreach events, or we just use for training as well, because you have to learn to be able to drive these robots. But others we do keep intact, especially if they've been really well performing, because we have one of these robots from 2019. That was the robot that actually made it to the world level, and that robot sits up in a display case. So we took off all the important and expensive pieces, but the physical frame of it still stays there for people to look at. And the third and final level of FIRST is FLL, or the First Lego League. Now, this is for elementary school students and younger than that as well. And there's 3 different levels. There's FLL Discover, FLL Exhibition, and FLL Challenge. Each of these levels meet your student where they're at, whether they're just learning how to form different ideas to complete a certain challenge, and you're just presenting your solution to a problem, whether you're learning with Mindstorms kits to be able to work at a smaller level, or whether you're creating your own creations with these Legos to be able to compete in an active environment. All 3 of these levels teach your student and your children how to be able to work with 21st century STEM skills, and it really starts a passion for robotics and STEM early. I love it here. That's the end of it. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about what we do on our teams and what it's like to be on the FIRST Robotics team, and then we can look at what the competitions look like and what these robots look like in an active environment. Kylie, I don't know if you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do on our teams.
Hi, I'm Kylie. I am on both of these teams. So on the FRC team here, which is the big robot, I am the imagery lead, and so I do all these fun designs and make our shirts and all that. Are you wearing the new shirt this year? Oh, no, I did the back of that shirt. I also am on drive team, which means that when we use this robot in competitions, there's a 5-person drive team that drives the robot and creates strategy on it and actually competes, and I'm on that as well. And I'm also on the smaller robot team, and I'm the captain of that team. And I also built that robot. That's what I do.
She does a lot. She also created all of these graphics here and our designs that we use to present like our ideas and everything. This all comes from your mind. It's amazing. I'm Chase, you know me. So I'm also on both of these teams. On the big robot team, on the Robototes, I work with the media team. So we take pictures and videos of the robot and then publish those online. It helps with our documentation, and it shows off to other teams and other people what exactly we're working on, and it just helps the students learn media skills if they're interested in a career related to that in the future. Because whether or not you go into robotics looking to go pursue a traditional educational path and graduate with some STEM degree, the goal is to learn what you want to learn. You get out what you put in. So whether you're interested in media skills, business, learning to strategize, mechanical or programming, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can learn from these programs. Within this team, I also work on what's called scouting. So essentially, during the competitions, I just sit up in the stands the whole day And I sit up there with a bunch of other students and some tablets, and then everyone there is watching what's going on in the game and the competition, and we're tracking what kind of points are being scored where and by who. That way we can take that information and give it to our Drive team in order to help understand the game strategy of both who we'll be competing with and competing against. That way we can have the most efficient strategy going into the event. On the little robot team, on the Robototes, I don't do quite as much. I did work on the mechanical side for a few years, but more recently I've been working with the outreach and the public relations side. So I'm not in charge of anything here, but I just sit there and people tell me what to do and I help them do it. It's a lot of fun. So whether it's planning events like this, reaching out to other teams to be able to communicate with them and understand how our processes are similar and different, it's just a lot of fun. You get a lot of learning opportunities to kind of understand both how robotics works in your school and how it's different and similar to other schools. That way you can both learn and grow with each other. That's what we do. I'd like to take a look at what a normal day of competition looks like as well. Because as fun as building the robots are, we gotta put it into practice somehow. I think it's right. So we're gonna be talking about what competition looks like for both of these levels. I don't have any personal experience with how the competition works at the Lego League level, so we can look at some videos of how that works, but unfortunately I don't have much first-hand experience on that. But we can talk about how competitions work for both the big robots and the small robots. They compete at different levels with different games, so they'll end up working out a little bit different. Yes?
Are you gonna make all robots?
Not today, but what I can do is if you're interested in learning how to build robots like these, I can give some information to your parents and then they can reach out and we'll send information on teams in your area and then you can learn to build your own robots at a whole bunch of different levels. So, maybe.
There you go. Recruit.
Okay, so for the big robot, our competitions can span from 2 to 4 days long. And how it works is we have about 30 to 60 teams all playing together, and it's 3 teams against 3 teams at a time, so somebody who might be competing against you one match might be competing with you another match. And we all play about 10 to 12 matches called qualification matches. And those last a majority of the time, so up to like 3 days. And based off how well you do in your qualification matches, you get a ranking. And then the top 8 teams get to do like a dodgeball style, I pick you, and create their own teams to go head to head with all the other top 8 teams. And then we end up with winners. There's 3 winners that win at the end of the event. And that happens on the second day. And then there's also, we're more than robots, so we also have awards for different things. We are fortunate enough that for the past 4 years, we have won the most prestigious award in Pacific Northwest called the Impact Award, and that's basically how much we impact our community. And there's a bunch of all other little awards that we can get through to like imagery or basically robot design, and so none of that has to do with how we actually compete on the field. It's just fun little add-ons.
Working with the smaller robots, it's a little bit different, a little bit the same. So these competitions are, these competitions are just one day. So the matches happen a lot faster, there's fewer teams at the event. That way you can be in the morning, out by the evening. But the overall system works the same, it's just condensed. We start with qualification matches where the robots get earned points. And then towards the middle of the day, we reach where the top, in this case, the top 4 teams, 6 teams. The top few teams select other teams to join them in an alliance, and then they all go off into the playoff matches together, and out of that comes 2 winners, the 2 robots competing on the top alliance. There's also awards. They work pretty much about the same, a bit about different names, and the definitions are a little bit different. but the equivalent of the impact award here for impacting the community is called the Inspire Award, which we have not yet won, but we'll keep on working towards it. It's pretty much just a more condensed version of the competition, but they both are a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of other teams. You get to do a lot of driving robots. And I am going to pull up some videos. Would you like to talk about advocacy?
So, how our team has been able to win that really big prestigious award for the past 4 years. Part of that is something that we do in advocacy. So, I don't know if you can see, but there's some photos over here. So, in the past multiple years, we've been talking to our legislators in Washington, and we created a bill in 2023, which lets students who compete in competitive STEM extracurriculars can gain credit, kind of in a similar way that if you play a sport, you can gain like 1 credit of PE. And so that passed in 2023, it's now law, yay! And then we also do advocacy on the federal level. So for 3 years, we have gone to our legislators in DC and talked about a few different acts about funding education. One of them has been the Chips and Science Act, and that is like, we need more chips in America, so for like our phones and like electronics, and so we've invested a lot of money into that, but there's also an education portion of people that need to know how to make the chips, and so we've been trying to get money to get more education for STEM so that we can have more people into the workforce later on. Also, the Every Student Succeeds Act, Title IV Part A, which helps with like extracurricular activities, and then we've also been advocating for the Individuals with Disability Education Act to help kids on IEPs to be able to get more funding and the resources that they need in the schools. Are you done, Trace?
Yeah, I was trying to find the FTC match that we won, but I'm actually separate in that one. I have FRC.
Okay. Yes. You have a
I
question?
might have missed it at the beginning, but what does 2412 mean?
So, how the numbers work is that when you register to become a team, you get a number. So we were the 2412 team to register. Same with 16750 and 2043, which is the tinier robots. We were the 16750 team to register.
There's 2,412 teams.
There's a lot more.
There's a
That
lot
was
more
when
now.
they registered that.
Yeah.
They were the 2,412 team.
Yeah.
So in this video, you'll actually be able to see one of the repeat teams from this year. So we've now reached over 10,000 teams just within this group. The other one is even more because it's a bit easier to fund.
2,500?
Something like that, active teams.
Is that
But
just Washington State or the whole country?
this is global?
Well,
I think that's global. So this is all this all has teams globally. So it's a pretty widespread organization.
I just want to say, wow.
It's a lot
I'm
of
impressed.
fun. And so this is going to be one of our qualification matches. The event was actually held at Sammamish High School just this past March. And I hope the audio works.
What's that other logo? Is that a robot?
This one?
The red thing, what is that?
It's just one of our. It's just our like team. It was originally part of the Sammamish logo, so it's just a bird. It's part of our logo.
Sammamish.
Yeah, it's just from Sammamish High School. Oh, I believe it's just not a bird. So this is an example of what one of the big robot matches looks like. So there's like 64 of these over the course of a weekend. This one.
The lines in 3, 2, 1, go!
So we are on the
Roll it
blue
into
side.
25.
We're the robot in the middle.
Pre-programmed instructions rolling on all 6 of these machines. Varying degrees of motion across the board here. Blue Alliance having the most freedom of said motion here. Lots of points going up on the board. Up on that top level Blue Alliance reach 7 points apiece for level 4 scores there in the autonomous period. That'll help give them their 30 points you see posted. So the Red Alliance's 10, and drivers will now take control. This one should be quite the match to watch. Jack in the Bot ranked number 1, Robototes with them ranked number 11, facing off against Miso Mechanics, trying to hold on to a number 3 ranked position. Just in those top 3 points on the leaderboard there, a huge swing in average RP. Jack in the Bot, 4.5 average ranking points per match. Miso, 3 3/4. It's going to take not just a win, but a domineering win here for Miso Mechanics to move up the leaderboard. Let's see what they have in store for us here. Right now, Blue Alliance leads by 39 points. I think I know how to do math. Jack in the Bot lines up with Blue Alliance right there. They're on some lower level scores now. They've been focused so much on that top level of the Blue Alliance read. Interesting to see the change of dynamic now as they start picking up 3 points apiece on level 2, and they've got some friends coming in here. It's Talon out of Renton. That's the red bumpers you see over here in blue turf. Just one defender allowed per side of the field, and Red Alliance has designated the Talon as the chosen one. Making an okay job here of slowing down Jack in the Bot, but Jack in the Bot, famous of course for their swerve drive, built pretty well in-house. Zipping right around the defender here, doing a bit of a bob and weave. Making a very quick work of their offensive cycles while the Robototes over there find their bearings. Now the Blue Alliance sent their 3rd member over to red turf. It's our rookies there, Bison Dynamics out of Spanaway. Way south of Tacoma there. Hanging out with the Red Alliance for vast majority of the match, slowing down those cycles. However, the margin between our 2 teams narrowing as we go here. Red Alliance really starting to catch things up. I think in part due to Robototes' offensive kerfluffle with the stuck piece of coral in their robot. Jack in the Bot climbs for 12 on a deep cage. 2 seconds left. Both Alliance partners join them for 2 points apiece. Live score was separated by just 9 points. Your final score, it's a Blue Alliance victory. 127 to the Red Alliance's 104. A nice clean sweep of all 6 more available ranking points. That is, I believe, the first time today we have seen that one.
So I know it was a lot of ones. But that is an example of what one match looks like for this level of robotics. There's 64 of those across 2 weekends, and then there's also playoff matches after all of those are completed. It's a very active event. So that match we just watched was one of our matches. We were on the Blue Alliance competing against the Red Alliance, and so we're in teams of 3, each working to outscore each other. So the goal is not to necessarily take points away from the other team, but it is to just score more than the other person. There's no way to take points away from the other team. There are rules to abide by, and there are penalties, but any penalties you cause just gives points to the other team. It doesn't take away points from anyone. So the goal is to simply do better than your alliance, not to fight them. It's a lot of fun. And so that was a match from this past event, and I'll go over how the game works in just a second.
The controllers who are working the robot, is there one controller per robot, or are there multiple people working the same robot?
So I mentioned earlier, it's a 5-person drive team. And so one person's job is to drive the robot, and then another person's job is to operate the robot. Both of them have controllers, and like the operating functions is like moving this entirely up and like placing and all that. And then driving is just like driving around, or like we have some functions for some of the operations because not all of them fit on one controller. And then we also have a drive coach, which I am, which I just kind of scream at them like, do this, do that, do this. And then we have a human player. So there's a part of every single game, there's a human player that does different things depending on the game. So for this year's game, they give the robots those little pipes, or they throw the big balls into like the overhead area. You can kind of see that right there. That's the human player station, and that's where they feed the robots. And then there's also a technician, which kind of is the box of the robot. They make sure it's working okay, does all the checks before it goes on to the match, and helps replace the battery, and travels it from our pit to the actual competition field.
There's a lot of work that goes into making these matches happen, and there's a lot of skill behind the glass, as people like to say, that goes into letting all of this work. Because, so a little bit of information as well about the matches. So we saw in the first 30 seconds, and then there was a loud buzzer. So those first 30 seconds of the game are in 15? The first 15 seconds of the game are entirely autonomous. So they're entirely controlled by programming. Humans do not touch the controllers at all. So the first 15 seconds of the game, every scoring piece is worth a little bit more, and it's up to the robot's code to, at the push of a button, begin moving and then go on and score on its own without any human interference. Then after the first 15 seconds, it goes into the driver-controlled teleoperated period, and that is when humans are allowed to touch the robot controllers, and it's when they're entirely in charge of the motions and the scoring. So there is a lot of programming as well that goes into both creating the functions for the human control period and then that 15-second section of when it's entirely run by coding. Now, within the FLL, First Level League, that we were talking about a little bit at the beginning, this is the elementary schoolers level. This is entirely autonomous. So the FLL League is the humans build the robots, and then they code the robots, and then the matches themselves are entirely run off of that pre-programmed code. So there isn't any human interference during the actual driving. It's set up by students who program the robots beforehand. Both FRC and FTC, the big and middle robots, both of these have an autonomous programmer control period and a human-driven section. Yes?
How did you score? I didn't really see how you scored. I just saw the robot snip it off like for a ball.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. So actually, you can kind of point out what's going on here a little bit. So there's these things here. Those are essentially, those are just big blue balls. Those are called algae. And so they're stuck in the center piece called the reef. So this entire game is water themed. It's called Reefscape. That is the name of this year's game. And so the algae that are stuck into the middle reef, those are not worth any points as they are. So your goal is to get them off of the reef so that way you can score the chunks of PVC pipe that you can see kind of sitting on the top of the reef. Those aren't worth anything if they're scored where there is algae. But the important thing is their goal here is to remove the algae from the reef and then to score the PVC pipe coral on top of the little poles that are sticking out. And so the different levels are worth different points, and and you have to learn how to line up your robot to score the different elements. The algae, so the big blue algae, that can also be scored in two other sections of the game, which you can't really see from here. I'm going to see if I can try and find a frame where you can see how those are scored. Or I'll let something and let him do it for me. That works. Oh yeah, you can kind of see it. So there's see that black rectangle in the background? Yeah, there. The algae can be picked up and pushed into there for a certain amount of points, and then there is a human player who can then pick up the algae and attempt to toss it like a giant basketball into the barge where the cursor is pointing out on the top left side of the screen. So there is a little netted area up there where the human player can grab the algae and attempt to throw it in there for points. And then at the very end of the game, the last, you can see the barges there. 20 seconds. The last 20 seconds of the game, the robots are going to attempt to drive over to where the cursor is pointing now on the left side of the screen, and they have to grab onto those metal cages and pull themselves up. And they have to hang there for a good 3 or 4 seconds until the end of the buzzer. And so if you can grab onto the cages that are up high and lift yourself all the way off the ground, that's a certain amount of points. And if you can grab onto the cages that are closer to the ground, that's worth even more, because you have to be able to kind of tilt a 120-pound robot fully on its side so that way it doesn't touch the ground. There's a lot of really innovative ways that students have gone about attempting to climb. Well, ours is actually functional right now.
Well, Chase, you can just end the match by getting all 3 robots in the
Yes, you can also just get some points by zooming in and parking there. It's worth a lot more because it did decline, but you do get points for running in and parking. So there's a strategy to scoring until the end, and then driving your robot over to park if you can't climb, because not all robots can.
So how our robot accomplishes this task is there's this funnel right here. Normally what it does is it lets those PVC pipe go into here, but it also has another functionality. This goes all the way up, straight. I don't think the table will
That's a good point. It's heavy. Never mind.
It's
Maybe we're gonna keep talking.
This goes all the way up, and there's like a little channel in here that goes into, and it latches on, and then it goes all the way back, and it ends up with the cage right here, with it about 6 inches off the ground, and the chain right here. So it like pulls the chain inwards.
I have a video of it working, but I'll have to find it. That's what the matches look like. That's everything I had on our agenda. I'm going to attempt to find some videos as well of our robot accomplishing these certain tasks. I know I've got some that are where it's a lot easier to see exactly how our robot is able to score and climb. In the meantime, we can go into a Q&A section, and then you can come up and look a little bit closer at all of the robots and their subsystems. There's a lot going on, but there's even more going on up close. So I'd love if we could go just a bit of a Q&A, and then we can take a pause. You can feel free to come up and look, and I'll try and find those videos of our robot looking. So are there any questions? Yes?
What kind of batteries do these creatures use? Or machines?
So for each different levels, they need a different power supply. So for this one right here, we use really big lead batteries, like that big. And with the batteries, they're lead, there's a lot of safety precautions with them, so we go through extensive training in case anything happens to them, so that we don't hurt ourselves.
For the smaller robot, they use a different type of battery. This one's a lot easier to pick up with one hand. Those ones are heavy. These ones, they're smaller versions of similar battery, very high powered. These need to last for about a match. And then you want to switch them out between every match. Otherwise, you do what's called brownout, where your battery starts to die in the middle of a match, and your robot doesn't score as many points as you would have liked. Definitely not from personal experience. They are rechargeable, yes. So they're charged between matches, and we have usually an individual dedicated to making sure the battery's been swapped out and a new one is plugged in, and so they know what's charging and what's ready to go for a match. And just one person to be in charge of that, because it's a lot to keep track of if you're doing other things. Yes?
Question on that. So for those things you said it's fully programmed, it's not human without any human intervention, they have to play the match. Where do you get those skills? Like where do you learn these programming skills?
So for the level of robotics that's fully autonomous, that's the first LEGO League. So those are the ones that are built off of Mindstorms and other LEGO kits. The students learn from our mentors. So that we have adults, whether it's teachers, parents, or other individuals in the community who are interested in teaching robotics skills, because we need to learn from somewhere. And so we have a dedicated set of individuals who will come to our meetings, and they teach us the skills so that way we can build the robots. Our team would be nothing without its mentors, so we also have what's called the Woody Flowers Award, which I'd like to talk a little bit about. And so the Woody Flowers Award recognizes one specific mentor from each team. So the team nominates them, and they write an essay, answer a bunch of questions about the impact that mentor has had on the team. So Woody Flowers himself is one of the founders of FIRST. He unfortunately passed away, but this award is meant to honor him and honor the adults and parents and teachers who dedicate their time simply volunteering to come and teach us. And so we learn from industry professionals, essentially, who are willing to come in and sit with a bunch of high schoolers and tell them how to program for the 17th time in a row, even if you just learned how to start a GitHub account. But it's amazing. So we learn from other people, and then the students also go on to teach and help each other. So we have different leads for different sub-teams. We have programming leads, mechanical leads, and so we have the adults to teach us, and then the students to share and build. It's awesome. Yes,
Do you have any relationships with MIT?
I wish. Not directly, no. There's some teams that do work out of like college preparatory schools, but we are not one of them. There's some colleges that, if you're nearby a big tech college like that, where you'll attempt to go seek out mentors from that school in order to get the skills of students learning and working there. However, we're not one of those schools. But I know there's a couple teams that do work with schools like that. If you know any MIT grads who have a bit of free time, maybe we could work with MIT, that'd be great. Or even better, Caltech is not here.
What would the cost be if you added up all the parts on each of the machines?
Okay, so for each level of robotics, it's different amounts of money because it's different sizes. So for this one, this is our most expensive. This is like 20K, 30K. But our team in total, with all of our expenses, like we fundraise all of this ourselves. And it's about like 150K to 200K for the entire team. It's a lot. And then this one over here, this one is a lot easier to get into. For this robot specifically, it's probably about 1 to 2K. But it kind of depends on how much you want to like machine yourself versus go off of shelf parts. So it can range from anything from like 500 to like 2.5K. And we raise about 7 to 10K a year for a full team.
It's very expensive. All of that is led by students as well, so we have adults to help us with the forms, but the students themselves are those who reach out for sponsors and set up all of these different opportunities in order to be able to raise the money. Yes, and actually on the back of our shirts we have a list of all our different sponsors. And if any of you happen to have deep pockets and extra time, I would love to take your information to, set up a further networking opportunity. Yes.
So the tasks, I'm attacking a little bit later, the tasks are different every year, right? You have to
Yes.
go with tasks up.
I think it's 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah, but I bet you're reusing a lot of the parts from last year's robot.
Like, sometimes. So for different levels, there are different rules regarding what parts can be reused. So every year is a different game and a different challenge, and that also varies level to level. So these are both water themed, but the games themselves are entirely different. Within FRC, we're not allowed to reuse robots or full systems or anything like that. So we can use the physical parts and take inspiration from past years, but the robot itself has to be fully redesigned and rebuilt at the beginning of each season. It's a little bit different for FTC, in which case you can reuse full parts and sections. You can reuse full robots with this, but it's not necessarily the most effective. And so some parts here, I'm sure, came from past robots. So the individual pieces, definitely we reuse, the individual bits of hardware. And we're able to reuse full subsystems, so if we wanted to use the same claw next year, we could, but it'd likely be more beneficial to just attempt to rebuild it, not only to just relearn those skills, but also so that way it can be more tailored and customized to that specific challenge. Any further questions?
Are you going to demonstrate either of these robots?
Yes. This one we actually can demonstrate a little bit. This one's going to have to stay off. Much more high-powered. We need a lot of safety glasses and a much bigger area for that, but we can show it while it's turned off. This one we can actually show some of the systems, so we can do that a little bit as well.
And then, since you're not going to be able to show that one, how high does the extension on it end up going?
It's going to be 56. Wait, how much? 6 inches and 5 feet. It's taller than me, so it's like 64.8, I think, is our max inches is our max extension. Because it's taller than me at max extension. So it's got to be above 64. About 64 inches, 65, something like that. It's a tall robot. This one's got to reach up real high in order to be able to pick up the scoring elements and place them all the way on the top. This one, not so much. It's tall, not quite as tall. We have this entire lift here that does not get to a full 5 feet. Not this year. We've had some tall robots in the past. Any final questions? Yes.
That was an interesting challenge for this year. Can you give us an example of another challenge for a different year that was fun or interesting?
I can pull the video.
So every single year there's like a different theme. And so last year's theme was music. And so our game was crescendo, and we had these like little foam circles that we had to throw into a like little bin. And we also had to like, I'm trying to remember that game. It was so long ago. Okay, so this one is what matters. You did different things with the foam circles, and so you could throw it into like a little basket really high up, or you could throw it to a human player, and the human player could accumulate a certain amount of notes and hit buttons to either make the notes that they score in the bin worth more, or they would hit something called the cooperation bonus, which if both alliances hit the cooperation button, then you get an extra point for both of your teams. So no matter which side you're on, you all benefit. We've had some pretty fun ones in the past of like little wiffle balls, and you kind of just get so many and then shoot them all at once. Or there's been like a basketball one, or there's one of my favorites was probably 2 years ago, and it was like a tic-tac-toe game. It was kind of cool.
It was awesome. So this is an example of last year's games. This is actually our robot at the World Championships. So we're going to be on the red side. Our robot's a little bit hidden, it's on the far, but this is what our robot looked like last year at the World Championships in one of the past games. I think we did pretty well in this match, hopefully.
Match 24 in the autonomous period. 3 notes in already on the right side of the field. Little Lions has 1. Here they come back with more. Not fully successful, getting 5 and 6.
So the goal of this one was to pick up all the little orange discs and then to launch them into the sections over on the side. So you launch them right up and over here. So we just missed, but we just launched the shot of note up in there. We can see our robot driving back over, and we're going to launch it. It's going to go straight through that top section, and that's how we get the points from this year's game. There we go. We made one.
They're getting fed from Technocast, representing Kokomo High School. And Red Alliance is amplified for the next 5 seconds.
And so right now we scored a certain amount of those little discs elsewhere, and then we were able to hit a button, and it made our points up here worth a little bit more.
Everybody comes away clean, no defense yet this match. G-Force from Robotics filling up the amplifier. Here come the partners, 24 and 12. Red notes continuing.
Ooh, so you can actually see in this match there's a little bit of defense. So there's some blue robots running over to the red side and some red robots running over to the blue side, trying to get in each other's way and stop the other team from scoring. Just push them out of the way and steal their scoring.
One more time. The team from Kokomo, 45, shoot up top. 5 points and out during that amplified session. Camdenton Laser is here to respond. The shot just a little short that time. The partners from Louisiana 1912 scoring top. 35 seconds for play here on match 24. Blue amplifier ready for action. Red is ready to activate. 5-point shots go in, and we enter endgame. Items come flying in. Technocast lining up with the partners from Clayton, North Carolina, 9008. Harmony bonus, and both robots can lift up on the same chain.
And so here in the middle, you can see some robots attempting to grab and lift themselves up. So there's another climbing function in this game. But we are red, so we just won. That's pretty good for us. So that was one of the games from last year. I think that one was a lot of fun. So you can see how there's a similar idea of there's a scoring mechanism of a couple different levels, and then there's something at the end, whether it's a climb or you have to park in a certain place. They all follow that similar theme, so there's a couple different ways to score points and win, but in the end, the games do vary, and it's a different style of theme. We have a question, but now he's hiding. We can come back to that later. Yeah.
So when you go to, so you have like qualifiers and then these matches, and then I know you have different matches and you eventually hopefully go to the world's competition down like Texas or something,
Yeah.
right? So when that happens, does your whole alliance go as a group, or do you reestablish the alliances at each competition?
So at every competition, you create a new alliance if you're able to make it that far. This is actually what I work on this year specifically. So it's my job if we get high enough within the event, so if we're in the top 8 teams, we'll go out onto the field and then we'll either have another team invite us to join them to compete with them in the playoffs, or we will find a team who will ask to come compete with us. We've been able to do that the past couple events because fortunately we've been able to get high enough to either have someone pick us or we get to pick someone else. But every event you work with a different set of teams. So it's not the same people going to every event, you're not competing with or against the same teams. And then every playoff is different because every playoff event is different, I should say. Because it's a different set of people, the robots will perform a little bit different. So the groups themselves are going to be different as well because you'll be working a little bit better and a little bit worse with certain teams depending on the changes they've made to their robots within that time. And so you gain points to advance to more competitions from each event, and those points stick with you, but the actual teams you worked with do not. So if you won an event with someone and you both qualified and go on to the next event, you both keep those points, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be competing next to them again.
You may want to turn on the robot, you're going to run out of time for church.
Shall we, final question, and then we'll get the robot demonstrations.
Did I understand correctly on the penalty points that the red team had 10 penalty points and the blue team got points?
Yes, so the penalties work where if you cause a penalty, you're just giving points to the other alliance. So in this one, it wasn't our team, but one of the red teams hit a blue robot when they were in what's called a protected zone. So we touched a robot when they were in a part of the field where we're not allowed to interact with them. And so that got 2 penalties awarded, 2 penalties on our team, which gave 10 points to the other alliance. And now we'll show off some of the robot.